ever get that feeling? Like you're lost in a really thick fog, you're trying to find your way, but you're just not sure which path is the right one.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. It really sums up how making decisions can feel these days.
Especially, I think, for people like you listening who really value knowing things, being informed, but, well, who has the time to wade through everything?
Exactly. It's like this constant flood of data, news, opinions. You name it. You think it'll make things clearer, but you often just end up feeling, swamped.
Right. Swamped and maybe a bit lost. So that's what this deep dive is all about. We've sifted through a lot of material on decision-making.
Yeah.
And we've tried to pull out the real core insights. Think of it as like a powerful defogger for your decision-making windshield.
I like that. A defogger. We want to uncover why choices feel so overwhelming sometimes.
And give you practical tools, yeah. Things you can actually use to make choices with hopefully a bit more clarity, more confidence.
Definitely. We'll be looking into those mental shortcuts biases that we all have, often without even realizing.
Yeah, the visible traps.
Right. And we'll talk about information is more, always better. Spoiler, probably not.
Huh? Good point. Plus, we'll touch on critical thinking, why it's like fitness for your brain. The role emotions play, which is often bigger than we think. And data, becoming a bit more data savvy.
And collaboration, too. Getting different viewpoints. Plus, learning from the past. Super important.
So the mission today, pretty straightforward. Equip you with actionable strategies, a clearer map, maybe, for navigating decisions.
Aiming for those aha moments, Quick insights without the overwhelm of doing all the research yourself.
Exactly. Okay, ready to dive in.
Let's do it. So first up, let's tackle that feeling of being overwhelmed. Our sources talk about this guy, Daniel, a project manager.
Okay.
His mornings sound intense. Just a constant barrage. News, emails piling up, social media pings, team reports.
Wow, yeah. Sounds familiar.
Right. Before he even gets to his real work, his brain is already feeling kind of full. Drained, almost.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. That feeling of mental clutter before the day's even properly started.
And it shows it's not just the huge, life-changing decisions that wear us down. It's the sheer volume of little choices, the constant info stream. It all adds up.
Yeah, mental fatigue is real.
And what's really fascinating, which our sources dig into, is how much unconscious bias drives these choices. Take confirmation bias, for instance.
Ah, yes, the classic.
It really is like putting on colored sunglasses, isn't it? Everything you see gets tinted. We naturally look for stuff that confirms what we already think.
Like that investor example, they believe a stock will go up, so they only notice the good news, ignoring the warning sign.
Precisely. It's so sneaky because you feel like you're being rational, objective.
But you're not. You're subconsciously filtering everything.
Yeah. Which brings us to maybe the first big lesson here.
Yes.
Pause before you decide. Ask yourself honestly, am I seeing the whole picture?
Or just the part that fits my existing view? That's a tough question to ask yourself.
It is, but so important. Like Nathaniel Branden said, the first step toward change is awareness. Just knowing these biases exist is huge.
Okay, so awareness of bias is step one. But what about just having more information? Surely that helps, right? We think it should.
You'd think so. But let's go back to Daniel. He gets this fancy, real-time data dashboard. It's got everything. Clicks, engagement, sales, budget stuff.
The works. Sounds impressive.
Totally.
Yeah.
But instead of clarity, he just gets more confused.
Oh, God.
Well, the numbers don't always line up. Different charts seem to say different things. It just highlights this key point. Information isn't the same as wisdom.
Right. Having the data doesn't mean you automatically know what to do with it. It's like having ingredients but no recipe.
Exactly. Or, searching for something simple online, like should I take vitamin C and getting 50 conflicting articles? More data often just equals more noise.
Analysis paralysis sets in. So the second lesson is,
ask yourself, what information actually helps me make the specific decision?
Okay.
And what's just distraction? It's about filtering.
Filtering out the noise. I like the analogy they used. Needing a compass, not a giant map showing every single tree when you're lost.
Yeah, find the essentials that point you in the right direction for this choice.
Okay, so biases are traps. More info isn't always better.
Yeah.
What does help then?
Critical thinking. Our sources talk about it like decision fitness.
Decision fitness, like a mental gym.
Kind of, yeah. It's not just passively taking information in. It's actively engaging with it, questioning assumptions, looking at the evidence.
So instead of just asking, should I do A or B?
You ask something deeper, like what problem am I really trying to solve here? That changes everything.
Okay. Like maybe the issue isn't which software to buy, but why team communication is breaking down in the first place.
Exactly. Daniel spent ages comparing software features, right? But he never really stopped to define the core need. What problem was the software supposed to fix? He was comparing tools without knowing the job.
Right, getting bogged down in details without the big picture.
So, lesson number 3, define the real problem first, before you even look at solutions.
Like making sure the ladder's against the right wall before you climb.
Perfect analogy.
Oh,
And like
done.
Tony Robbins said, successful people ask better questions so they get better answers.
Makes sense. Now, we often try to be super logical about decisions, don't we? Push emotions aside.
We try, but our sources really stress that emotions are always part of the picture. We can't just ignore them.
They have a huge influence, even when we don't realize it.
Remember Daniel's outburst in that meeting? He was stressed, under pressure. Those feelings just boiled over and affected his choices right then and there.
Yeah. Even when we think we're being rational, our mood, our stress levels,
Yeah,
they're working behind the scenes.
definitely. Think about that chess player story.
Yeah.
Brilliant strategist, right?
Mm.
But worried sick about his dog, and it totally threw off his game. His emotional state tanked his decision-making ability.
Wow. So what's the takeaway there? Lesson 4.
Do a quick emotional check-in. Before a big decision, just ask, am I calm and clear right now? Or am I feeling stressed, upset, rushed?
Acknowledging your state. That can stop you making choices based on temporary feelings.
Exactly. It's a powerful little pause button.
Okay, so just to quickly recap this first bit. Be aware of biases, filter information overload, use critical thinking to define the real problem, and check your emotional state. That's a lot already.
It is, but they all tie together. Now, let's shift focus a bit to actively taming that information chaos, finding clarity in all the noise.
Okay, let's do it.
Our sources introduce Lear. She runs a small online store,
Right.
and she's facing a common dilemma. Expand the product line or focus on what's already selling well.
A classic business decision. So she starts researching.
And how? She ends up with, wait for it, 32 browser tabs open.
Oh my goodness. 32. I've been there.
Haven't we all? And the result, she's totally exhausted, more confused than ever, just paralyzed by all the info.
Yeah, that tipping point where more research actually makes things worse. You feel busy, but you're just stuck.
It's like that fire hose analogy again. You just can't handle the volume.
And our brains really do have limits, right? There's only so much we can process effectively.
Absolutely. Push past that limit and you get anxiety, you can't focus, you feel powerless.
So how do we fight back? How do we manage the flood?
Well, there's a neat tool called the 3-filter rule. Simple, but really effective.
Okay, more.
For any piece of info you find, ask 3 questions. 1, is it relevant? Like really relevant to this decision?
That makes sense.
2, is it reliable? Is the source trustworthy? Can you depend on it?
Crucial.
And 3, is it actionable? Can I actually use this information to help me choose?
Relevant, reliable, actionable. I like that. If it doesn't tick all 3 boxes,
It's probably just noise. Let it go.
nice. It reminds me of that Denzel Washington quote. Don't confuse movement with progress. Clicking through 32 tabs feels like movement.
But it might not be progress if the info isn't relevant, reliable, and actionable.
Exactly.
Okay, so filtering is key. What else helps tame the chaos?
Becoming more data literate, understanding the numbers.
Data. Feels intimidating for some people.
It can be, but data holds so much power. You know, it shows patterns, helps predict things, but only if you can understand it.
Right. Raw data without interpretation is just numbers, like that unreadable map idea.
Precisely. Leah had sales spreadsheets, website stats, but didn't really know what they meant.
Until she learned a bit more.
Exactly. She learned some basic data literacy, how to read charts, figure out profit margins, spot trends, and suddenly the data told a story.
What did it say?
A huge insight. Something like 80% of her revenue was coming from just 20% of her products.
Wow, the Pareto principle in action. That must have really clarified her decision. Totally. Which leads to a simple tip. When you look at data, ask, what's the story here? Look for the patterns, the main message.
Don't get lost in every single number.
Right. And remember, data is a guide, not the absolute final word. It's one piece of the puzzle. Use it alongside your experience, your gut feeling, critical thinking.
Good point. It informs the decision, doesn't dictate it.
Now, beyond our own analysis, there's another huge factor: collaboration.
Talking to other people.
Yes, we sometimes think big decisions are made by lone geniuses, but often the smartest choices come from diverse teams.
Different perspectives.
Absolutely. Think about Leah again. She didn't just stay stuck in her 32 tabs.
What'd you do?
She talked to people. Her intern who knew about social media trends, her warehouse manager who understood logistics, her customer service rep who knew what customers were actually asking for.
Bringing in different expertise, different angles.
Exactly. And that collective input gave her a much rounder picture, more confidence in her final choice. It really backs up that Ken Blanchard idea. None of us is as smart as all of us.
I love that.
Yeah.
But group decisions can go wrong too, right? Groupthink.
Oh, definitely. That's a real danger. It works best when people feel safe to speak up, even with different views.
When different ideas are actually respected, not shut down.
Right. And when everyone's clear on the goal, groupthink happens when people suppress their doubts just to fit in.
So how do you avoid that?
One technique mentioned is silent input. Before the group discussion, everyone writes down their own thoughts privately.
Okay.
Then you share those written thoughts and make sure everyone's initial perspective gets heard before group dynamics take over.
That's clever. It levels the playing field a bit.
Yeah. Like that story about the airplane engine test.
Tell me.
A junior technician spotted something weird in the data. Minor detail. Senior guys might have missed it.
And he spoke up.
He did because the culture allowed it. And turned out it was a potentially huge problem they averted. Shows insights can come from anywhere.
Wow. That's powerful. Okay, quick recap of this part. Filter info, relevant, reliable, actionable. Get comfortable understanding data stories. And collaborate smartly, valuing different views.
You got it. Which brings us to the final piece. How we grow and evolve as decision makers over the long haul.
Becoming better over time. How does that work?
Well, our sources introduced Marcus. He launched an app, planned it all out, and it flopped.
Ouch. That's tough.
Really tough. But instead of just being gutted, his key question was, what can I learn from this?
The reflective approach. Not blaming, but learning.
Exactly. That shift is crucial. We all make decisions that don't pan out. The difference is whether we reflect, learn, and adapt for next time.
It's about learning, not perfection.
Precisely. And one way to do that is a structured decision review. After any big choice, ask, what went well, what didn't, what would I do differently next time?
Like analyzing the game tape.
Exactly like that. And a practical way to make it stick is keeping a decision journal.
A journal. Tell me more.
Just write down important decisions, why you made them, what info you had. Then later, go back, see what actually happened. What did you learn?
That sounds incredibly useful for spotting your own patterns, your strengths, and maybe your blind spots.
It really is. As Churchill said, failure isn't fatal, success isn't final. It's the courage to continue that counts. Reflection gives you that courage based on learning.
Okay, learning from the past is key. What else helps us evolve?
Staying flexible, not marrying your plans.
Adaptability. Things change so fast these days.
They really do. What was a brilliant decision 6 months ago might be less brilliant now. Clinging to old plans can be risky.
Like that restaurant owner, Angela. Her online ordering worked great initially.
Yeah, during the pandemic boom, maybe. But then customer habits changed, competitors adapted, and she didn't.
So her winning strategy became a losing one because she wasn't flexible.
Exactly. Good decision-making needs that ability to adapt.
So another practical tip.
Revisit major decisions regularly. Every few months, maybe. Ask, does this still make sense now?
And be willing to change course if needed.
Yeah. Changing your mind based on new info isn't weakness, it's growth.
Okay, reflect, learn, stay flexible. Got it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes. Building daily habits that actually train your decision-making mind, like exercising a muscle.
Oh, interesting. What kind of habits?
5 key ones were highlighted. First, slow down daily. Just 10 minutes of quiet. Ask what really matters most today. Helps avoid impulsive choices.
Okay, carve out quiet time. What's second?
Ask better questions. Move beyond what should I do to deeper questions about assumptions, problems, consequences.
Like we discussed with critical thinking. Makes sense. Third.
Stay curious. Actively seek out info outside your usual bubble. Read something different. Broaden your perspective.
Prevents echo chambers. Fourth habit.
Practice gratitude. Sounds a bit soft maybe, but it genuinely fosters a calmer, more thoughtful mindset, less reactive decision-making.
Interesting connection.
And the 5th.
Surround yourself with thinkers. Talk to people who challenge you, who see things differently. Constructive debate. Build your own diverse advisory board.
In a way, yes. And a final simple tip: end each day asking, did I make at least one wise choice today? Just builds that awareness muscle.
It's like that wise river metaphor they use, knows its direction but flexes around obstacles.
Exactly. Purposeful but adaptable.
What about those really, really hard decisions? The ones with no clear right answer?
Yes. The sources address that too. The advice isn't about finding the perfect answer, because sometimes there isn't one.
So what do you aim for?
Aim for a good decision. One based on clear thinking, the best info you have, and crucially, your core values.
Aligning with your values.
Yes. Even if the outcome isn't certain, making a choice that's considered, clear, and true to your values is still a success in its own way. Like Roy Disney said, it's not hard to make decisions when you know what your values are.
That provides some comfort for those tough calls. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together.
We've covered a lot. Awareness of bias, filtering information, critical thinking, checking emotions, understanding data, collaborating, learning from the past, staying flexible, building good habits.
It's a whole toolkit, really.
Yeah.
Tools you can use right away to hopefully cut through some of that fog we started with.
Definitely. More clarity, more confidence. That's the goal.
So as a final thought for everyone listening, think about one small decision you're facing right now. Could be anything. And just try applying one thing we talked about today. Maybe it's checking for bias, maybe it's asking a better question, maybe it's the 3-filter rule.
Just pick one strategy.
Yeah, and just notice. Notice if it changes how you feel about the decision. There's a bit more clarity, a bit more confidence.
It's a little experiment in better decision making.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been great discussing it.
We really hope these insights help empower your choices moving forward.